The smell of retirement was supposed to be damp earth, old books, and the honey-sweet scent of sun-baked oak leaves. After 35 years of breathing smoke, ash, and the acrid tang of chemical fires, my lungs were scarred, and my soul was weary. I had been Chief Marcus Rylance, the man who walked into the skeletons of burned-out buildings, the man who read the stories told in char patterns and soot lines. I was the man who had led the investigation into the Cedar Creek fire, an inferno that had claimed 12 firefighters and a piece of my own soul. Now, I was just Mark, the quiet new owner of 14 Cypress Lane, a man whose only ambition was to sit in the shade of his new, magnificent companion. The house was nice, a sturdy 1980s build with good bones and a Class A fire-rated roof I'd insisted on. But the house wasn't what I bought. I bought the tree. They called it the Sentinel. It was a 200-year-old valley oak, a true giant, with a trunk wider than my car and a canopy that painted a perfect, dappled shadow over the entire property. It was rooted in my front yard, right near the edge of the narrow, single-lane road called Summit View Lane. This road was the only access to the 5 executive mansions on the ridge above, the most exclusive part of the Cypress Ridge Estates. My little house was the gatekeeper. The tree was the guardian. I was 3 days in, carefully pruning the sucker branches from the base of the Sentinel, when a white Range Rover, so clean it looked like it had never touched gravel, glided to a halt in the middle of the road. It didn't pull over. It just stopped, blocking the lane. The window didn't lower. The horn blared, a short, imperious, angry sound. I sighed, putting my shears down, the ghost of 1,000 false alarms. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked over. The window lowered, revealing a woman who looked like she'd been sculpted from ice and quartz. Her blonde hair was pulled into a severe, architectural bun. Her face was tight, smooth, and utterly devoid of warmth. Diamonds glittered at her ears and throat. "You're the new one," she stated. It wasn't a question. "Marcus Rylance," I said, offering a polite nod. "Just Mark. Nice to meet you." She ignored the introduction. Her eyes, a pale, chilly blue, flicked past me to the oak. Her perfectly painted lips thinned into a razor line. "That," she said, her chin pointing at the tree. "It's a problem." I blinked. The tree, the Sentinel. It's magnificent. It's the reason I bought the... "It's messy," she snapped, cutting me off. "It drops acorns. It drops leaves. It's disgusting. My tires track that filth all the way up to my house." She paused, her eyes narrowing. "And more importantly, it completely ruins the panoramic valley view from my lanai. It has to go." I was so taken aback, I almost laughed. "Go, I'm sorry. I think you misunderstand. That's a 200-year-old, protected, native oak. It's practically a landmark. I can't, I would never cut it down." Her face did not change expression, but the coldness in her eyes intensified. "This is Cypress Ridge, Mr. Rylance. We have standards. We are a fire-safe community. That thing is a disorganized fire hazard, and it's a nuisance. It is not compliant with our aesthetic. I am Barbara Hestron. I am the president of this homeowners association. You will receive a notice, and you will remove it." The window, as silent as a guillotine, slid up. The Range Rover glided up the private lane, its white paint pristine, leaving me in its exhaust. I looked up at the Sentinel. Its leaves, rustling in the afternoon breeze, seemed to be whispering a warning. My dream of peace, of quiet, of simply being, already had a name. And her name was Barbara. My new life had begun. And it was already in violation. The first official salvo arrived 2 days later, delivered by a curt courier. It was not a simple letter. It was a thick, cream-colored packet, bound in a folder embossed with the Cypress Ridge Estates gold leaf logo. It felt less like a notice and more like a corporate summons. Inside, on heavy, linen-finished cardstock, was the notice of violation. Barbara Hestron, it seemed, was nothing if not thorough. She had found every conceivable bylaw to twist to her purpose. Violation. Section 8.04. Unapproved landscaping, oversized flora. The landscaping element. Tree. Exceeds the 50-foot height covenant permitted for all non-structural additions. Violation Section 12.01. Public nuisance debris. Property is the source of significant leaf, acorn, and pollen debris, which is soiling community common areas, i.e. Summit View Lane. Violation Section 5.002. Failure to maintain property line encroachment. Tree canopy overhangs the 20-foot vertical clearance required for the community access road. The cure demanded was not to trim or to rake. It was complete and total removal of the non-compliant oak tree within 30 days. The fine for non-compliance was listed at $200, with a note that it would double for every 30-day period the nuisance remained. I sat at my new desk, in my new, quiet study, and felt a weary, familiar headache build behind my eyes. Oversized flora. She was fining a 200-year-old tree for being tall. I was still in reasonable new neighbor mode. I was a man of codes, of data, of procedure. Barbara was just misinformed. She was operating from a place of aesthetic pique, but I could respond with facts. I spent the afternoon drafting a polite, professional, and procedurally perfect letter. I addressed it to Barbara Hestron, President, Cypress Ridge HOA Board. Dear Ms. Hestron, I wrote, I am in receipt of your notice of violation, dated September 20th. Please be advised that these violations have been cited in error, as they conflict with overriding county and state ordinances. I laid out my case as if I were writing an after-action report. 1. Regarding Section 804, oversized flora. The tree in question, a native valley oak, Quercus lobata, is registered with the Summit County Protected Tree Ordinance, Ordinance 44A, under Registry Tag DO 772. As a protected tree, it is explicitly exempt from all non-safety-related private HOA covenants regarding height or removal. 2. Regarding Section 1201, nuisance. The debris leaves. Acorns is a natural and expected product of a protected native tree. California Civil Code explicitly states that natural, non-hazardous debris from a healthy tree is not a legal nuisance. 3. Regarding Section 5.02, encroachment. I have had the tree inspected by a certified arborist. See attached report from Evergreen Arborists. The canopy has been laced and lifted to a vertical clearance of 22 feet over the road, which exceeds the 20-foot covenant and the 13.5-foot minimum required by the International Fire Code. I concluded the tree is in perfect, radiant health and poses no threat. No fines are warranted, and no cure is necessary. As no violation exists under the superseding county law, I consider this matter closed. I attached the arborist's $400 report. I attached a copy of the county ordinance. I sent the entire packet via certified mail. Return receipt requested. I started a new file, a thick, hardbound ledger, just like the ones I used to keep for my major fire investigations. I labeled it Hestron Sentinel. The response came a week later. It was another embossed envelope. Inside was not an apology. It was a second fine. Subject notice of violation. Second attempt. Violation S. 8.04, 12-01, 5.02. Failure to cure. New violation. 3.10. Uncooperative conduct. For a frivolous and argumentative response to a legal notice from the board. Total fines due $600, $200 original. Doubled to $400 plus $200 for the new violation. Note: the board has reviewed your documentation and finds it irrelevant. The Cypress Ridge CC&Rs are a private contract, which you agreed to. That supersedes general county guidelines. The Architectural Review Committee, which is Ms. Hestron, has final authority. Failure to pay will result in a lien. Supersedes county guidelines. It was legally, factually, and fundamentally untrue. It was a bluff, a power play, and she had invented a violation for me arguing with her. I sat in my study and looked out the window at the Sentinel. The light was golden on its leaves. A deep, cold anger settled over me. This wasn't about rules. This was about tyranny. I went to my bookshelf. Tucked behind my novels was my old library. 2019 International Fire Code. Annotated NFPA 1 Fire Code. Wildland Urban Interface, a guide for firefighters and developers. I sat down, not at my desk, but at my computer. I pulled up the Cypress Ridge Estates final plat map and the developer's agreement. I wasn't looking at my property. I was looking at hers, at Summit View Lane. I traced the single, winding, thin blue line from my house to hers. 1.2 miles, I muttered. A single ingress-egress access route, dead end, exceeds 1,000 feet. I zoomed in on the turnaround at the end of her cul-de-sac. It was just a standard cul-de-sac. Insufficient. An engine needs a 96-foot hammerhead, or a 120-foot radius. This is a joke. I cross-referenced the 2019 IFC, Section 503.2.1. This entire road, I said to the empty room, is a Class 1 death trap. The developer never should have gotten the permit. I looked at the date, 2005. Ah, they built it under the 03 code, before the Cedar Creek fire changed everything. It's grandfathered in, but it's still a death trap. My eyes went to the fire hydrant icon on the map. There was one at the base, near my house. The next one was at her cul-de-sac, 1.2 miles away. God help anyone who has a fire up there, I whispered. I saved the file. My investigation had begun. The escalation moved from paper to poison. For a few weeks. It was quiet. The fines kept arriving in the mail. I kept filing them in my Hestron ledger. Unanswered. I raked the leaves. I enjoyed my shade. I documented. Then, the Sentinel began to get sick. It wasn't a slow, natural decline. It was fast. And it was wrong. It started on the lower branches, the ones closest to the road, the ones that encroached on her precious common area. The leaves, in the prime of summer, began to yellow, curl, and then turn a sickly, desiccated brown. Within a week, the entire lower canopy on the roadside looked like it had been torched. My heart pounded with a cold, sick dread. I ran out, my hands tracing the rough bark. I got on my knees, my face to the earth at the base of the trunk. The smell hit me. Not the rich, loamy smell of the forest floor. It was a sharp, chemical, industrial reek, like a plastics factory. The soil was dark, oily, and wet, even in the dry heat. Someone had dumped something here. I ran back to my workshop and grabbed my old investigation kit, the one I used for point-of-origin testing in arson cases. I put on gloves. I took soil samples, bagging and labeling them. I took samples from the dying leaves. I took control samples from the healthy soil on the other side of the tree. This wasn't just a spill. This was a deliberate act, a massive dose, dumped directly at the root ball, under the cover of darkness. This was an attempt to murder my tree. My hands were shaking, not with fear, with a focused, white-hot rage I hadn't felt since I'd stood in the ashes of the Cedar Creek fire. This was the same kind of malice, the same intent. I called my arborist. Dave. He was there in an hour. He was a quiet man who loved trees more than people. He took one look at the oily soil, one sniff, and his face went pale. "Oh, Mark," he breathed. "Oh, no. This is 2,4-D, but not the kind you buy at the hardware store. This is industrial grade, undiluted. This is an attack." "Can we save it?" I asked, my voice raw. "A tree this old," he said, shaking his head. "It's a massive shock to the system. The roots on this side are probably already dead. We can try. We can flood the soil. Try to flush the poison out. We can inject the trunk with nutrients. But, Mark, this is a 50-50 shot, and it's going to cost a fortune." "Do it," I said, my jaw tight. "Whatever it takes, do it." As Dave's crew worked, running hoses, setting up injectors, I saw her, Barbara Hestron. She was at her mailbox at the bottom of the lane, pretending to get her mail, watching. She had a small, satisfied smirk on her face. I walked over to her. She didn't flinch. "Having some trouble with your tree, Mr. Rylance?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake syrup concern. "It looks sick. Just like I said. Such a hazard." "You did this," I said. It wasn't a question. She gave a small, tinkling laugh. "Me, why? I wouldn't know the first thing about gardening. It must have been a terrible accident. Maybe one of the landscape crews spilled something. Such a shame." "I have soil samples," I said, my voice flat and cold. "I have evidence." "Evidence?" she scoffed. "Evidence of what an accident? Don't be absurd. Honestly, this just proves my point. The tree is dying. It's a danger. It needs to come down. This just speeds up the process." She turned and glided back to her Range Rover, leaving me standing there, the smell of poison in the air. That night, I didn't sleep. I was in my workshop. The retired Mark was gone. The chief was back. I installed my cameras. I had kept them from the Cedar Creek case. They weren't just CCTV. I had 2 high-resolution, low-light cameras covering the road and the trunk, but I also had a third, a thermal camera, the kind we use to spot hidden hot activity in a fire scene, or to track arsonists moving in the dark. I mounted it high in the attic, aimed through an old vent. It had a perfect, heat signature-based view of the entire road, the base of the tree, and the entrance to Summit View Lane. I sat at my desk, the monitors casting a pale glow. I was no longer a homeowner. I was an investigator. And I was building a case. This was not a tree. This was an attempted homicide. And I was going to find the killer. The poison had done its work. The sentinel was gravely wounded. The entire side facing the road was a skeleton of gray. Dead branches. But the tree was a fighter. The other side, the side facing my house, was still green. It was alive. But it was ugly. It looked, to the untrained eye, like a dead, dangerous hazard. Which was exactly what Barbara wanted. Having created the hazard, she now unleashed her next weapon: social isolation and public slander. She was going to use the fear of fire, my own personal, professional demon, against me. She was the administrator of the Cypress Ridge Neighbors online forum. I wasn't a member, but a nervous neighbor. A nice man named Jim, who had admired the tree, printed out the post for me. Her sticky post at the top of the forum was a masterpiece of manipulative slander. Urgent community safety alert. It began, in screaming red letters. Dear neighbors, as your HOA president, my first and only priority is your safety and the protection of your homes. This is why I have been working tirelessly for months to resolve the issue of the massive, dangerous, and dying tree at 14 Cypress Lane. She had poisoned it, and now she was playing the hero, warning everyone about the dying tree. The audacity was breathtaking. As many of you have seen, the tree is now visibly dead. It is a tinderbox, a ladder fuel of the worst kind, just waiting for a spark to send embers all over our beautiful community. It is also, as I have warned, at immediate risk of falling and completely blocking the only emergency access road to Summit View. She was planting the seed, blocking the road. Unfortunately, the new owner, Mr. Rylance, has different priorities. He has refused all board requests. He has refused all neighborly concern. He is an emotional tree advocate who is actively and selfishly putting all of our homes and our families at risk. He is refusing to remove this dead tree, threatening the fire-safe status of our entire community and risking all of our insurance policies. I know this is a difficult issue, but safety and property values must come first. The board is exploring all legal options. In the meantime, I urge you to not engage with Mr. Rylance, as he has proven to be hostile. If you see him, urge him to do the right thing for the community. Cypress Ridge, safe. Safety first. The comment section was a firestorm of ignorance and panic. This is an outrage. He's endangering us all for a stupid tree. My insurance already went up after the last fires. Get that thing cut down. I saw it. It looks dead. Why is he being so selfish? My kids walk past there. What if it falls on them? Thank you for fighting for us. Barb. He sounds unhinged. The real-world effect was immediate and chilling. I was now the tree man, the selfish fire starter, the unhinged recluse. I was required to pay HOA dues, which included access to the community pool and clubhouse. I tried to go once. I walked onto the pool deck, and the chatter stopped. A woman physically grabbed her toddler from the baby pool and pulled him close, as if I were a predator. A group of men grilling burgers stopped and just stared at me. I could hear the whispers. That's him, the tree man. He's the one Barb is fighting. Looks crazy. He's going to get us all burned up. I, Marcus Rylance, the man who had pulled families from wreckage, the man who had written the book on wildfire urban interface. I was being called a fire hazard. The irony was so bitter. It tasted like ash. I turned around, walked out, and never went back. My isolation was complete. It was me, my dying tree, and my cameras. Barbara had successfully painted me as the villain. She had turned my neighbors into a mob, and now she was ready to use that mob and the authorities to finish the job. The poison and the slander weren't enough. The sentinel, though grievously wounded, was still standing. The arborist's treatments had kept the core alive. It was not, by any legal definition, dead. Barbara needed a legal kill shot. She called the one authority she thought would have to agree with her, the county fire department. I was in my yard, watering the new, young saplings I'd planted at the other end of my property, a just-in-case plan when the big, red fire marshal truck pulled up. It parked right in front of my house. Lights off. But its presence was a statement. A young, crisp-looking man in a dark blue uniform stepped out. His badge read, Miller. His collar pins marked him as a deputy fire marshal. And, of course, Barbara Hestron was right there, having clearly escorted him up the lane. She was in full, concerned president mode, her face a mask of grim, professional worry. "Captain Miller," she was saying, her voice pitched for maximum effect. "Thank goodness you're here. This is it. As you can see, it's dead. I'm just sick about it. I've been warning him for months. It's a tinderbox. And look." She pointed at the single-lane road. "It's going to fall. It's going to fall right here and block the only emergency access road to my home. And to the other 4 homes on Summit View. You have to declare it a hazard. You have to order him to cut it down. It's a clear and present danger." Marshal Miller looked at the tree. His eyes were professional, scanning. He saw the dead branches. He saw the road. He looked at me, his face grim. "Sir, Marshal Miller, Summit County Fire. I'm here on a report of a hazardous, dead tree that's blocking a designated emergency access route." I walked over, wiping my hands. "Marshal, Marcus Rylance, a pleasure." I didn't offer a hand, just a firm nod. "I appreciate you coming out." My calmness seemed to throw him. "Sir," he said, more gently, "this tree, it looks like a problem. Ms. Hestron is right about one thing if this falls. It blocks this road completely." "You're not wrong, Marshal," I said, "but the tree is not dead. It was murdered, or, at least, the attempt was made." I handed him the folder from my Hestron file. "Here is the lab report from Evergreen Arborists, confirming the soil was saturated with industrial grade 2,4-D herbicide, a clear act of vandalism." Miller's eyes widened as he read the report. This is poisoning." "Correct," I said. "And if you look up," I pointed, "you'll see the new, green shoots at the crown. My arborist is treating it. The core is alive. It is not, by any legal or arboricultural definition, dead. Therefore, it's not a hazard that can be abated, but the victim of a crime." I then pivoted. "But, Marshal, you and I both know, the tree isn't the real hazard here, is it?" He looked at me, confused. "What do you mean?" I pointed up the road. "I mean Summit View Lane, a 1.2-mile, single lane, dead-end road, built in 2005 under the 003 code." Miller's face changed. The dealing with a civilian look vanished. He was looking at me like a colleague. I continued, my voice low and technical. "It exceeds the maximum 1,000-foot length for a single-access road under the new 2019 International Fire Code, Section 503.2.1, the turnaround at the terminus." I pointed up at her invisible mansion. "Is a standard 90-foot cul-de-sac. It's insufficient for a modern Type 1 engine or a ladder truck, which requires a 120-foot radius or a 96-foot hammerhead turn. The road is the hazard. Marshal, not my tree." Marshal Miller was floored. He was staring at me. This random tree hugger was quoting the IFC by section number. You know the code." He breathed. "I used to," I said quietly. "Now, Marshal, if you'll look at my property, you'll see a 30-foot lean, clean, and green defensible space, cleared to mineral earth. You'll see a Class A fire-rated roof. You'll see 1/8-inch wire mesh on all foundation and eave vents. I am compliant." I then pointed. Right at Barbara's house, visible on the ridge. She, on the other hand, has a cedar shake roof, a non-compliant roof, and she has, or she did have, juniper and rosemary bushes planted right against her foundation. That's the primary hazard on this lane. Miller's eyes went from me to Barbara, and his expression was no longer friendly. "Ma'am," he said to her, "is it true you have a shake roof?" Barbara was sputtering. That's not the point. The tree." "Ma'am," Miller cut her off, his voice now pure steel. "The tree, as Mr. Rylance has proven, is not legally dead. It's the victim of a crime, which I will be filing a report on. But your roof and your landscaping, those are clear and present fire dangers." He pulled out his own notepad. "I am not ordering the tree cut. In fact, I'm ordering it protected, but I am going to have to write you, Ms. Hestron, a formal notice to cure. You have 30 days to clear those junipers, and 90 days to provide a plan for replacing that shake roof, or you will be fined. Daily." Barbara Hestron's face, her perfectly sculpted, ice queen face, went a shade of mottled, Venus purple. I could see the muscles in her jaw nodding. She had called the fire marshal to be her weapon, and he had sided with me, and cited her. This is an outrage," she hissed. Who are you?" she snarled at me. "I'm just a retired guy, Ms. Hestron," I said softly. "A retired guy who likes his tree, and who hates fire hazards." She stared at me, her eyes promising murder. Then she spun on her heel and stomped back to her Range Rover, defeated and, for the first time, truly, publicly humiliated. Marshal Miller watched her go. He turned back to me, shaking his head. "Sir, I don't know who you are, but that was impressive. You just quoted the IFC better than I can. You on the job." "Used to be," I said. "LA County, Chief Rylance, retired." Miller's jaw dropped, literally dropped. "No, Cedar Creek, Rylance. That Chief Rylance Holy. Sir, it is an honor." "Just Mark," I said, "and I'm just trying to keep my tree alive. But, Marshal, she's not going to stop. She's been humiliated. She's going to do something drastic." "I'll note it in my report," Miller said, his face now grim. "And, Chief, you stay safe. That woman, she's more of a hazard than that road." He was right. Humiliating her was the last straw. She had failed with fines. She had failed with poison. She had failed with slander. And she had spectacularly, publicly failed with weaponizing the authorities. The law was not on her side. So she decided to break it. The sound of chainsaws ripped me from a dead sleep. It was 5:17 a.m., Saturday. The sound was wrong, not the buzz of a trimming saw, but the deep, guttural roar of multiple, large-bore felling saws. I bolted out of bed and ran to my front window, my heart hammering. A large, unmarked flatbed truck and a separate wood chipper truck were parked on the road. Blocking it, a crew of 3 men, dressed in jeans and hoodies, were attacking the Sentinel. They weren't pruning. They were felling. They were making the deep, triangular wedge cut at the base. I ran out onto my porch in my robe, screaming, "Stop! Stop! That's my property. This is illegal. That is a protected tree." One of the men, a large bearded man, just glanced at me. "Got a work order from the HOA. Old man, emergency hazard abatement. Get back, or you'll get hurt." He revved his saw, and the sound was a physical blow. And she was there. Barbara Hestron. She was parked on the other side of the tree, in her white Range Rover, her headlights illuminating the scene like a movie set. She was in a silk robe, a coffee mug in her hand, and she was watching. Her face was a mask of pure, ecstatic, triumphant glee. "It's coming down! Marcus!" she screamed over the saws, her voice giddy. "Finally, I told you I'd win. I told you it was a hazard. This is emergency abatement." I was on my phone, dialing 911. "I have a crew of men illegally cutting down a 200-year-old protected oak on my property, 14 Cypress Lane. They are trespassing. They are armed with chainsaws. Send someone now." The saws bit deep. The sentinel, my 200-year-old giant, wounded and poisoned but still fighting, didn't have a chance. The tree groaned. It was a sound I will never forget, a deep, tearing, wooden scream. "Timber!" the man yelled. The tree shuddered. It cracked. And it fell. It fell with a ground-shaking, earth-shattering crash. It fell exactly as she had always predicted. It fell across the road. It fell across the only road. The single lane, Summit View Lane. It didn't just block the road. It obliterated it. The massive, 20-foot-wide trunk and the 100-foot-long canopy formed an impenetrable, 10-foot-high, 200-ton barrier of tangled, ancient wood. The saws went silent. The sudden quiet was deafening. Barbara Hestron was laughing. She was standing beside her car, clapping her hands. "Oh, look!" she shrieked, her voice echoing in the pre-dawn light. "It's blocking the road, just like I said it would. I told them, I warned them. Now the county has to clean it up, and you'll have to pay for it." She had her view. She had destroyed my tree. And she had, in her mind, proven she was right all along. The dangerous tree had fallen and blocked the road. She had won. The rogue crew, suddenly realizing what they had done illegally, felling a protected tree, and, worse, blocking a public access road, panicked. They threw their saws in their truck, jumped in, and tore off, tires squealing, back toward the main road. It was just me, in my robe, on my side of the wooden wall, and her, in her robe, on her side. Sirens wailed in the distance. The deputies were on their way. I looked at the 200-ton barrier. I looked at the single-lane road. I looked at her house, at the end of that 1.2-mile, dead-end trap. I looked at her, and my voice was a hollow, cold whisper. "You're right, Barbara," I said. It's finally over. You've just signed your own death warrant." She just laughed at me, the sound high and brittle. "Oh, stop being so dramatic. Marcus, it's just a tree. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going back to my mansion, to enjoy my view." She got in her Range Rover, turned it around, and drove up the hill. She was now, officially, trapped in her own 1.2-mile kill box. And she was the only one who didn't know it. The deputies arrived, screeching to a halt at the impassable wall of wood. They were furious. "What the hell happened here?" the senior deputy yelled. "She did," I said, my voice dead. "Barbara Hestron. She hired them. She was right here." I pointed to my attic. "And I have the video, thermal, and high resolution. I have her face. I have her voice. I have everything." The scene was pure, unadulterated chaos. It was 6:05 a.m. The sky was just beginning to turn a pale, bruised gray. The deputies had secured the scene, taping off the massive, impassable logjam. I was giving my statement. the deputy's eyes getting wider and wider as I explained who I was and what I had on video. The road was hopelessly, catastrophically blocked. A public works crew had been called, but they were hours away. And then, I smelled it. It's a smell I will never forget. It's not the smell of a wood fire or a wildfire. It's the acrid, plastic, chemical smell of a structure fire, the smell of burning insulation, of melting PVC, of aerosol cans and upholstery. I looked up, past the wall of my murdered tree, up the 1.2-mile, dead-end road. "Oh my God," I whispered. A plume of thick, greasy, black smoke was pouring from the roof of Barbara Hestron's mansion. "Fire!" the deputy yelled, fumbling for his radio. "Dispatch structure fire, 1200 Summit View Lane. It's a big one. And, dispatch, be advised, Summit View Lane is completely blocked by a fallen tree. I repeat, access is blocked." We could hear her, even a mile away, a high, thin, animal shriek of pure panic. She was on her lanai, her $10 million mansion erupting in flames behind her, and she was trapped. In the far distance, the siren started, the familiar, rising wail of a Type 1 engine, louder and louder. The massive, red engine from Summit County Station 4 came roaring up the main road, lights blazing, and then screeched to a halt, its air brakes hissing, not 30 feet from the wall of oak. The firefighters, led by Captain Miller himself, jumped out. They stood there, in their full turnout gear, and just stared at the 10-foot-high, 200-ton barrier. Their faces, in the red glow of the fire truck's lights, were masks of pure, slack-jawed disbelief. I can't get the engine through," Miller yelled over the radio, his voice cracking with adrenaline. "The road is blocked. It's impassable. We can't run a line from here. It's over a mile. We don't have that much hose." Barbara was on her cell phone, screaming at him. We could hear her tinny, digitized shriek from Miller's radio, which was clipped to his chest. "What are you doing? Put it out! Put it out! My house is burning! It's a mansion!" Miller, his face grim, keyed his mic. "Ma'am, we are blocked. The road is. There's a tree in the way. The entire tree." "Cut it!" she screamed, the sound so piercing it distorted the speaker. "Bring a chainsaw! Cut the damn tree!" "Ma'am," Miller yelled back, "that is a 200-ton oak. It would take a logging crew and heavy machinery, hours to clear this. We don't have hours. Your house is... We can't get to you." This was it, the moment from the title, the moment of pure, terrible, beautiful irony. She was screaming. The firefighters were watching. They were helpless, standing at the barrier she had created, watching her mansion burn. And now, the reveal. I walked out of the shadows. I stepped up to Captain Miller, the deputies, the firefighters. They all looked at me. I looked at Miller. My voice was no longer Mark, the retiree. It was Chief Rylance. "Captain," I said, my voice all command, "what's your operational status?" Miller, flustered, just reported to me. "Sir, we have a Class 1 structure fire. Single-family dwelling. 2-story, visible flame. Roof is already collapsing. We have no water supply, as the hydrant is up that road, past the blockage. We have zero apparatus access. We have one civilian, trapped on the property, but she's on the lawn. She's not. She's clear of the structure. We can't. We can't do anything. The senior deputy, holding the flash drive with my video, stepped forward. Captain Miller, you know who this is. Right. This is Chief Marcus Rylance. He's LA County Fire. Retired. The Cedar Creek guy. Miller's jaw dropped. He looked at me. Chief Rylance. As if he were seeing a ghost. His entire posture changed. He stood straighter. Chief, he breathed. Chief Rylance. Sir, what are your orders? I looked past the dead sentinel. I looked up the hill. The entire roof of her $10 million mansion caved in, sending a volcano of sparks and embers into the dawn sky. I could see her, a tiny, dark figure on her perfectly manicured lawn, her hands to her head, screaming, her face lit by the orange glow of her own burning hubris. She had her view, a perfect, panoramic, unobstructed view of her own ruin. I looked at the massive, 200-ton barrier of wood, the tree she had killed, the tree I had tried to save, the hazard she had created, which had become her doom. My orders. Captain, I said, my voice hollow, the smell of ash filling my lungs, a smell I knew too well. You are in defensive operations only. You have no water. You have no access. You can't save that house. It's a total loss. I pointed to my own house. Your only move is to protect the exposures. You're going to pull a line from that hydrant. I pointed down the main road. And you are going to protect my home from any embers. You will set up a perimeter, and you will document. You will watch. I turned to the deputy. And you are going to arrest that woman. I pointed to the tiny, screaming figure on the hill. For false imprisonment and reckless endangerment, as soon as she finds a way out, because she, deliberately and illegally, blocked the only fire truck access road to her own home. And you, I looked back at Miller, are going to put that in your report, word for word. Miller just nodded, his face pale. Yes, Chief. I stood there, next to the firefighters, and we watched. We watched as the sun came up. We watched as her mansion, her monument to ego, burned to the foundation, and the only sound, besides the roar of the fire, was the high, thin, terrible sound of Barbara Hestron, screaming. The aftermath was a clinical dissection. Barbara Hestron's $10 million mansion was a total loss. A smoking, black hole in the ground. She was, as I had ordered, taken into custody as soon as a deputy could hike the 1.2 miles around the back of the ridge to reach her. The fire. The investigation was swift. Marshal Miller, with unofficial consultation from me, led it. The origin was found in the garage. It was a faulty charging port for a brand new luxury electric golf cart, a golf cart that, as the sales record showed, she had purchased just 2 days ago to better enjoy her new, treeless, panoramic view. The moment her insurance company, the same one that all the neighbors were worried about, received Marshal Miller's official report, they denied her claim. All of it. The report was damning. It stated, in cold, legal language, that apparatus access to the structure fire was rendered impossible due to a 200-ton tree which had been illegally felled and deliberately used to block the sole access emergency road. And, as a beautiful, final nail in her coffin, this action was undertaken by the homeowner herself, as documented by video evidence and eyewitness testimony from retired Fire Chief Marcus Rylance. She had not only lost her house, she had lost everything. She was arrested, The rogue logging crew, identified from my high-resolution footage, were arrested within hours. They flipped on her instantly, testifying that she had paid them $10,000 in cash, in advance, to remove the hazard, no questions asked, and to leave the mess for the county to clean up. She was charged with felony destruction of a protected tree, a $100,000 fine in itself, felony vandalism, conspiracy, and the big one, reckless endangerment causing risk of imminent death for knowingly blocking a fire road. She was ruined, financially, legally, and socially. She had no house. She had no money. She had a criminal record and a trial she could not possibly win. The Cypress Ridge community was in absolute shock. The entire HOA board was dissolved in a single, panicked meeting. The fire-safe status of the community was, of course, revoked not because of my tree, but because of the non-compliant death trap road that I had pointed out. Their insurance rates tripled overnight. A new, terrified, and profoundly humble group of neighbors formed an interim board. They approached me a week later, hats in hand. "Chief Rylance, sir, please." Their new president, Jim, said, "Tell us what to do. We had no idea." I sighed, looking at the massive, butchered trunk of my beloved Sentinel, which still lay across the road like a fallen soldier. "First," I said, "we're going to clear this road, and this wood. It's not mess. It's history. We're going to mill it. We're going to use it to build a new community footbridge over the creek. Second," I continued, "you are all going to pool your money and sue Miller Creek Homes and the county that approved it for building this death trap road. And you're going to use the settlement to build a second, compliant, emergency access road out the back of the ridge. And I will be your expert witness. And third, we're going to plant new trees. A lot of new trees." It's a year later. I'm sitting in my yard. The road is clear. The lawsuit was a spectacular success. The new Rylance Sentinel Emergency Access Road is almost complete. Where my magnificent oak once stood, there is a beautiful bronze plaque, right next to a new, young sapling, grown from one of the Sentinel's own acorns. The massive, milled trunk now forms the Sentinel Bridge, a beautiful landmark where kids now play. My house is quiet. My neighbors, who now treat me with a mixture of awe and deep respect, bring me pies. They ask my advice on everything, from smoke detectors to landscaping. I am, once again, just Mark. It's peaceful. The air smells like pine, and earth, and new growth oak, and it is, finally, quiet.